Hello. Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us again to this new webinar. My name is Miguel Figueroa from UNWTO. I'm the investment principal at the UNWTO under the Unit of Innovation, Digital Transformation and Investment. So we have a lot to cover. So let me jump into it immediately. We have around 258 participants, if I'm right, and is really exciting. So I will explain the little purpose of these webinars in a second. Okay, perfect. So this is the second webinar in this new series. The main purpose of this series is to create and offer some frameworks for tourism investments. So we started by presenting the data from the FDI Greenfield investments with the Financial Times last week. And today we are actually complementing those guidelines with our own guidelines. So it's the very first time that we are launching these guidelines from the UNWTO. So it's really exciting. And these guidelines that we are proposing from the UNWTO, it has 3 series as well. So the first series is focused on enabling frameworks for tourism investments. So the rationale there is what are kind of the key drivers, the key trends in order to understand how investments work in the sector. We all know it's very complex. There's a lot of challenges in this process, so we might see that in a second. The second series will be focused on good practice and cases. So we want to celebrate and learn from the countries or the companies that are doing really well. And the third one, it will be focused on policy making. So our purpose from the investment unit is to develop different knowledge from UNWTO so we can offer to our state members and also all our constituencies and our partners and affiliate members, so we can actually work together in this purpose. For this reason, we started to develop these webinars, and we are actually working with top-notch partners in this process that I will introduce you in a second. So just to give you a little bit of the background, I am going to introduce you this first this guideline, and this will be part of our new series. So when we developed these guidelines, we started with different assumptions and different kind of ideas that are underlying kind of the main development of these guidelines. And of course, one of them is the importance of the tourism sector. As you all know, it's a massive sector with different industries. It's a huge champion for employment, and it actually accounts for so many other outputs from the economy that we might see in a second. Tourism is, as you know, one of the top sectors that is under fuels and chemicals and over automotive products. So personally, I was surprised when I joined the UNWTO. I wasn't aware much about the whole potential of the tourism sector, and I was very humble once we started developing this research. So this was just before the COVID-19 hit us all and changed our lives, right? So you can see this picture of the traffic of the planes just in July, sorry, when it was really jammed in and really full. And by April, we decreased almost 100% of the flights, right? So we developed from the UNWTO different scenarios to actually see where and how the impact and the recovery of the tourism sector will be. I think we did a really good job, or our team from the competitiveness department did a really good job trying to create these scenarios to see that. And we are in the second scenario where we have like like a fall from 60 to 80%. And we can actually see those data and the correlation with this data with the FDI investments with the Financial Times report. I will go in a second to that part. And of course, the impact of COVID, as you all know, is very hard, and depending on the country that you belong or you work, it has different shapes or faces as well. For the countries that depend in the tourism sector, is of course they're having a hard time, especially those countries that are unskilled or they are related or depending much on the contribution of the GDP from tourism. So we are trying to classify and create tiers and to develop strategies to help them all. So this is a little bit of the background. So the underlying kind of assumptions when we develop these guidelines are basically three. The first one is the idea that the tourism sector is a human-centered, huge sector that involves a lot of people, and it goes beyond the mobility of the people. It goes beyond the social conventions. And I was in another panel earlier this week. Somebody was telling me that we actually miss the interaction, and tourism is not just going to travel to the beach. It's about families, about business, it's about the interaction. So it is such a powerful sector. And because of that nature, it moves about 1.5 billion people, as you might know, until up to last year, 2019. So the projections that we have in the UNWTO by 2025 is almost 1.8 billion people. It's almost 2 billion people that we will be traveling internationally. And that means that the tourism and the demand for tourists, the international tourists, will raise about 50 million per year. So I'm trying to give you some of these ideas to see what are we trying to face with the challenges that after this pandemic. One of the main purpose of the trips and the means of transportation, as you can tell, are several. That also goes along with the thing that I just shared, which give us a huge opportunity to understand not just the purpose of the trip, but also the means of transportation. The second rationale that we emphasize in these guidelines are related with the value chain and the ecosystem. As you all know, the tourism sector is intertwined between other sectors and is very transversal and go across different other industries. And it's such a powerful sector that have and create different spillover effects, especially in the small middle businesses. There is studies and evidence from the OECD that, for instance, for each dollar that is spent in exports of tourism, 89 cents are invested in the local economy. And of course, from that spillover effect create other impacts in the value chain in the countries. So, and this is also very complicated as well. When it's beautiful to see that, it's very complicated if you are an economist that is trying to measure the outputs of investments, right? So one of the problems and the challenges when we talk with people from UNTAC, for instance, or other people that are related with measuring and trying to develop reports on investments, is that it's very complicated to measure and to track the FDIs or the flows of capital that goes into the sector for different reasons, from ownership, from equity, from the perspective of the purpose of the same investment. And so there's a lot to be developed there. But the main idea here is that it's a powerful sector that have different subsectors. There is, of course, different approaches like the satellites that are kind of like increasing in the application to measure the outputs of tourism. But again, it's such a big ecosystem that involves from people, different stakeholders, from people from government, all the way to startups that are trying to innovate the value chain. Another main issue that we raise when we kind of start developing these guidelines is the idea of the digitalization and innovation and technology. For the last 5 years, of course, there's a lot of buzz on the digitalization part and digital transformation and so forth and so on. But when we see the data, actually, there is actually some data that we can actually show and share with you, and we are really proud of that, and especially with our partners, with the Financial Times and the FDI Intelligence. Just to give you an example, from the non-traditional perspectives, for instance, Booking reached market capitalization like bigger than other traditional kind of accommodation kind of sectors. That means that they are expanding in their different business models, and they have disruptive business models that are focused on the aggregation, and they are reaching different segments, and they are creating different perspectives and different revenues to increase their market cap. And this is just a glimpse of how the capitals are changing and how it's transforming in terms of investments. And if we dig down into the flows of capital related with travel tech startups, for instance, it's really surprising to see the increase in the last 5 years. The VCs, or the venture capitals, have invested almost $500 billion in travel and mobility tech startups. And there is also almost $70 billion of unicorn valuations in the travel tech world. And of course, this was previous the COVID. Most of these startups were related with the mobility and transportation startup solutions. But what is my point here? The main point for me is that we all know that digital transformation is important for the sector, but if we disaggregate these startups, if we start to see their solutions, we start to see different other services that are actually offering innovation to the value chain. Or in other cases, they are creating different business models that are actually strengthening or hindering the ecosystem. And in most of the cases, they are helping to be more efficient, especially in regard sustainability, for instance. And these new startups now are accelerating even faster because we have the COVID situation. In the UNWTO, we developed a healing solution challenge. We received about 10,000 applications for all over the world. And we were surprised to see different solutions that are strengthening the tourism sector. So this is actually in the non-mobility. If you see the mobility subsector in the travel tech, you still can see different subsectors that these innovations are influencing, and they are creating and disrupting the different business models. And it's really impressive. Like when you see even companies that are trying to go to space, to have tourism in the space, from electric vehicles to micromobility, is just really impressive. So the question is, like, how can we take advantage of these startups? How can we leverage these innovations, and how can we cooperate instead of compete? Many people told me, like, so should we move our traditional investments from the traditional brick or the construction or the accommodation towards the digital infrastructure? And I think it's a combination. And I think these startups actually are disrupting the ecosystem, and they are creating different markets that instead of competing with them, I think we should cooperate with them. The third underlying assumption for the investment guidelines in the tourism sector from the UNWTO is sustainability and resilience. This is one of our key priorities. Our Secretary General Surab Pololik has really emphasized this so much. And I think, and I personally believe that this is where we should go. All the consequences of the pandemic and the costs of this are related with how we create and how we treat our planet. So this is like a mass priority for everybody. In terms of data, when we see the data for infrastructure, for instance, we are still short in terms of capital investments. And as we will share in a second, the majority, like about 55% of the FDI that is going towards the tourism industry is related with accommodation and construction and hotel developments. And there's a big opportunity, I think, to while we develop different projects and different investments towards the sector, we can actually achieve and help to complete the SDGs, because there's a deficit in terms of infrastructure budget, the governments cannot achieve if we don't work together with the private sector. And on the other hand, also, I personally believe that the travel tech startups offer different solutions to decarbonize and to decentralize different energy systems, different processes, and especially now in terms of safety and health, I think is a beautiful opportunity to leverage and to intersect the technology with the sustainability, and also there's evidence on that. So we have data for the last 5 years of different startups, mostly from the States, from Asia, from Europe, that are doing really good job, and they are increasingly and growing so much. And I think it's a nice opportunity to create a sense of urgency and to develop and to cooperate together. Most of the time, sustainability is just talking, I mean, it's been in the conversations from the environmental part, but few times is being tackled from a perspective of innovation and intersection on how can we kind of leverage these solutions. So all of those three are the main underlying kind of ideas and rationales behind these first guidelines that we developed. And we came up with this basic new consumer behavior kind of profile of what it could be, the new consumer behavior. As you all know, in the next 10 years, we will have more like a Generation Z, millennial generations that are the travelers. And these new segments of market that are going to grow in 50 million in average per year are looking for these characteristics. They are trying to see more sustainable offers, especially now with the outbreaks of the COVID-19. They are trying to be more safety. One of the big difference between other generations and other markets were that they are travel frequent. They go 2 or 3, 4 or 6 times per year compared with one-time travels that they have their previous demand kind of segments. Of course, they are more digital. They are trying to look for experience. They are trying to see transparency in terms of the destinations, but in terms also of protection of data. They are trying to be authentic. And of course, they are trying to be safety, or they are trying to look for safety. Another kind of main idea that I want to just put out there is that there is an increase in the FDI greenfield investments. I think Sarah will touch on this. But for me, it's really interesting to see that most of the FDI and the investments in the tourism sector is concentrated heavily in about 40% of 45% of developed countries, and there is also different data and evidence that FDIs are less than 10% in emerging markets. But however, as some big markets are decreasing in terms of investments, like the US, others are increasing, like in Latin America and Asia Pacific, for instance. So that's why we are partnering also with YPAD that are here in this conversation to see and to ask them what are these kind of new approaches and how can we strengthen, and how can we help them to create different strategies for FDI promotion. Another insight from the data that we presented last week is that 55%, if I'm right, of the investments are focused on accommodation and development of construction. But there is another 31, 32% that are growing in terms of different solutions that are more digital, these softwares, platform, different solutions that are more innovative. So again, it's not a competition, but it's an increasing new opportunity of different investments that are being developed. And of course, another insights of the report that Jacopo presented last week is the decrease compared with last year investments. Is about 78% decrease. Just to finalize, the big challenges are related with also sustainability. And again, the question is, how can we interact and how can we combine, intersect technology to solve these big problems in terms of CO emissions and in terms of the efficiency of energy and also the infrastructure projects. And one of the final points, most of these technologies that I was talking about, sadly, are developed in developed countries. Just less than 1%, this is a real data, less than 1% of the investments in travel tech startups and mobility are being developed or are being done in emerging markets. And so there is a lot of space to grow, but also a lot of questions to be asked on how can we improve this process. So that's why I know I'm going really fast on this, but I want to give a space to the other panelists. This is really important for us. This year we developed a survey with 44 countries that are affiliated to the UNWTO, and 73% they kind of answered that the capacity building in tourism investments are a must and a high priority for them. So that is why we are starting to develop these new guidelines and this new knowledge, and we are trying to partner with the best partners out there. And we did all of this, and we tried to develop different guidelines, and it will be the first or the starting point. And in this guideline that you can download after the webinar, or we can send it to your emails, we kind of propose a framework to start working in promoting and developing investments, taking advantage of these trends, taking advantage of this technology that our partners from FDI Intelligence of the Financial Times will present in a second. And we are doing this together, and we are trying to provide different tools in order to enable these frameworks for tourism investments. So I know I'm going really fast, but I just want to give the floor to Sarah, who will actually take it from here and who actually will be presenting our next tools. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Miguel. All right, let me share my screen with you all. Can you please confirm you can see it for me, Miguel?
Yes, correct. We can.
Perfect. All right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you are all well. That's the main thing at the moment, I think. My name is Sarah Russis. I work for FDI Intelligence, the division of the Financial Times specialized in foreign direct investment data. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of the tools that investment promotion agencies, IPAs around the world are implementing for FDI attraction and promotion in tourism, but also in other sectors. and in an economy that is now becoming increasingly digital. So, as you might have already seen, FDI Intelligence, in association with the UNWTO, produced the Tourism Investment Report 2020, which you can find on the UNWTO website, as well as on the FDI Intelligence website. In that report, we compared tourism FDI globally for the first half of 2019 versus the first half of 2020. As you can see on the slide here, the number of investment projects in tourism decreased by 62%, from 373 investment projects in tourism recorded in the first half of 2019 against only 141 investment projects in the first half of 2020 in the tourism industry. Capital investment and job creation also decreased by 73% and 72% respectively. This huge decline in tourism FDI, mainly due to the COVID-19 crisis, meant that locations around the world, cities, regions, and countries had to find new ways of attracting FDI in an economy that was becoming increasingly digital. So what have they done? Well, in a series of interviews called the Fdi Diaries, where our team of journalists from the Financial Times interview heads of IPAs around the world, the main message that came out is the adoption of digital online tools for FDI attraction and promotion in tourism and related sectors, but also in other sectors. The CEO of FIPA Tunisia said at the bottom of the slide here, we are really adapting our way of doing things, including the adoption of new technologies such as geomapping and virtual reality. Geomapping and virtual reality, most commonly known as GIS, Geographic Information Systems, are increasingly being adopted by investment promotion agencies around the world for FDI attraction and promotion. The GIS sits on a location website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it enables any investor in the world to get access to interactive data and information about the location he or she wants to invest in. So I'll show you the kind of data that can be integrated into a GIS right after. But what you see on the screen there is examples of geographic information systems for some locations around the world. You've got Bordeaux in blue here. Bordeaux, a territory very well known for the wines in France. They have a GIS not only to promote the wineries, etc., but to promote their territory as an investment destination. On the right, you've got the homepage of a GIS for the whole of Switzerland. Any investor in the world not traveling at the moment who needs information about the business environment, the tourism investment environment in Switzerland can get access to that information on the GIS of Switzerland. And last month, the first ever GIS in Latin America was launched for the state of Jalisco in Mexico, more well known for the mariachi music, from what I understand. So what data can be integrated into a GIS? Well, first of all, we're talking about tourism destinations here. Everything that's with regards to attractions of a location can be mapped, put on a map. So here on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the territory of the region of Bordeaux in France, and they wanted to showcase the wineries in France, on where they're located, the names of the wineries, the address, the telephone numbers, the website, etc. Everything about museums. Then on the right-hand side, you've got the golfs, and any leisure park, any attractions that a destination has can be mappable. But most importantly, in a geographic information system, what is key is the data about the business environment. What is it that the investor needs on site? So because investors are not traveling at the moment, they are preparing the ground for when they are ready to go back up on a plane and actually go and invest on site. So on the screen here at the top, you can see the tax rates for the whole of Switzerland. Tax rates is very important when somebody invests somewhere. So you have the map of Switzerland. The darker the color, the more tax a corporation would pay in that area of Switzerland. So if you're towards Geneva here on the map, you can see that it's quite red. So it's more than 20% tax rate. And let's say I'm an investor from anywhere in the world and I want to go to Switzerland and invest in a hotel, let's say. I need to know if the labor force on site is going to be available to manage my project. So am I going to have managers available in the location I want to go and invest? Am I going to have any accountants, any clerks for my hotel and things like that? So a GIS can actually showcase data about the labor force. And a geographic information system becomes an investor's pleaser in a way, especially when they can actually imagine themselves there. Because again, they can't travel, but even when they can travel, it is important for them to get access to that information to make an informed decision about their investment. So what they like is to have virtual tours of the land, the space, industrial space, or whatever they are going to invest in. And this is when virtual tours are included in geographic information systems. So I'm gonna just pop out of that presentation and go online to show you some virtual tours examples. I'm just checking. I need to stop sharing and then share again, I think.
Sarah, we have, sorry, Sarah, we have stopped sharing the screen for you. Go ahead and share the web. Perfect,
thank you. So if I do, let me actually go to this. I'm just trying to go to the internet, but I don't know where it is actually. One sec. We need to back to my here we go. Sorry about that. Can you see it? Can you confirm, yes, please? Yeah, yes. Thank you so much. Sorry about that glitch. Okay, so here, this is a land available of a specific location in the States, in South Carolina. This is a custom tour. So you've got those little drones here. If I click on that, it's gonna actually zoom in and show me how it is looking. I don't know if on Zoom you're gonna see it properly, but obviously I'll share that presentation so that you can go and explore. But this is just a custom tour of the highlighted land in yellow here that is available in that territory. So you can see from the outside what it looks like, etc. Then there's also the option to have a 360 tour of, let's say, an industrial space that an investor would like to use for an investment. Could be in the tourism industry, as any related sectors. So here in that instance, you have a warehouse, and what you can do is click on front, back, center, outside front, floor plan, and you will have the information about the actual space that the investor wants to invest in, or that the location wants to actually promote in their GIS. So if I click on this little dot here, it's just showing me, you know, what it looks like from the outside. So it enables any investor in the world to actually imagine himself or herself there. What makes a GIS special is the fact that the data that I mentioned about before, the labor force, the tax rates, the demographics and all of that is linked to the space that an investor would choose in that location. So here on the screen, what you see is the GIS of the state of Ohio in the States. What they have is on the left-hand side, description of the current property or space that they want to showcase, right? There is a video, there are pictures, there's the primary contact within the Economic Development Agency that is in charge of that space. So any investor interested in that can contact that person. Then there is the description of the land available here, the property details, the size of that, is it 200 acres, hectares, etc., how much it costs, etc. And you have the option to actually go click virtual tour, map view, street view, 3D rotation, which helps you to really imagine yourself in that space. And all the data, let's say we take labor force, will be linked to that particular land. So here on the right, what you see is basically the land that is available here. And I am within a 45 miles radius here with this circle. So all the labor force data that I choose on the left now is going to be linked to that radius. So if I want to know if there is any managers, etc., in that location, it's going to showcase that when you click on it. So you can click on anything here and it will show you where they are. This is total businesses. This is not the labor force, but there's a lot of options here. So meaning that all the data is linked to the property report, basically. So again, I'll share some the presentation where I included some links so that you can go and explore yourself. Just to finish on that GIS thing here, this is the one for the state of Jalisco in Mexico, where anyone can get access to that information. I want to analyze the Jalisco territory. I just click on it, and then I land onto the community profile, the businesses, the mapping section about the touristic locations, and all of the properties that are available in Mexico. So a GIS can be used for tourism investment, but also for related sectors. As actually Miguel mentioned before, tourism is not only tourism, it's linked to a whole ecosystem that can be linked to a GIS. So let me just go back to my presentation now. So I think I can share again, probably. Yeah, thanks for that. And click share. There we go. Can you see it well, Tiana, Miguel?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you. So the beauty of a GIS is that, I mean, there's a lot that can be said about a GIS, but we don't have much time. So the beauty of a GIS is that it evolves at the same time as a location evolves. If there's a new land available for a tourism project, then it can be mappable instantaneously. And it shows an up-to-date image of what's happening on location for any investor, any people interested in the location itself. So at the moment, again, the focus of investment promotion agencies in charge of FDI attraction are on two things: the adoption of new technologies like virtual reality, like geomapping for FDI attraction, but also, second thing, on value propositions. Value propositions meaning locations around the world are wanting to know what is it that make their location special. What messages should I put out there to attract the maximum of investors now and when COVID-19 hopefully finishes and disappears from this world? So they're doing that and focusing on their asset maps in a way with benchmarking tools. Miguel touched upon that in one of the Series A guidelines. The FDI benchmark tool enables locations around the world to understand their strength, but also understand when there is room for improvement for policy making and things like that. So here on the screen, what you're seeing is a comparison of Thailand, South Africa, Costa Rica, Italy, and Australia in a hotel and tourism project. It's showcasing the operating costs per annum that would be for a hotel and tourism investment project. So how much would it cost me, let's say as an investor, to invest in a hotel in those countries per year? Here it shows you that Thailand would be the cheapest, Australia would be the most expensive, but a tool like that enables a location to also understand more about its competitiveness, about the flexibility of labor regulations, the skills, the productivity, the experienced staff that is available in a particular location compared to another one in a specific sector, which is key to understand, because if there's room for improvement right now, I mean, now is the time to actually change that. So benchmarking tools are really key at the moment for investment promotion agencies, and that's one of the example here. So I think I'm going to finish on that note, and I included some useful links for you all here. Again, I'll share that presentation with Miguel, Tiana, and the UNWTO team so that you can get access to that. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We are reading the comments already, and they are all impressed of the platform.
It's good to know.
So, yeah, let me share my presentation really fast. So let's jump to the second part of the panel. I will actually like to start by inviting our participants to write your questions in the section of the Q&A, so it'll be faster and you all have access to that instead of raising the hands because the time being. And the other thing, really fast, I just want to introduce to our dear panelists today that are having, and they are giving us their valuable time in this afternoon. So as you can see, there's Sarah. So thank you so much, Sarah, for your presentation. We have Inge Humbrecht. I never get it right if it's with the German accent or with the Dutch accent. You will correct me later, Inge, from Radisson. I invite her personally to give us a little bit of the insights from the sustainability point of view, because we tend to talk about trends and we tend to talk about sustainability, but she is actually doing that, and I would like for her to share her perspective and her projects that they are doing from the Radisson Hotel Group. Anna Arias, she called me this morning. She had a really hard time and a personal apologize, so she couldn't join us today, but we are going to have a specific webinar for the Latin American people in November, so for the people that actually are from Latin America. And finally, Bohiak Scalar, he is the CEO from WIPA, and if you don't know, WIPA is the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, so we actually are signing an agreement now, and we are working together to promote and to share more knowledge on this matter. And of course, our dear Natalia Bayona, who cannot join us today for the time being, but she actually leave us a video so we can kick off the panel.
How are we regarding investments? What we are doing on an investment or side is that we are working with two main vias of collaboration. First of all, of course, we have developed a strong investment network. So we work with more than 200 investors all around the world, and we are connecting them to the different ways of entrepreneurship and, of course, the different elements that can recover tourism. So that's why we are working with venture capital investors and, of course, startups. On the other side, we are working with the other on the other side, we have to say that we are working very hard on developing different solutions with the multilateral financial corporations. We're working with the IFC in order to create a more powerful mandate where we connect, of course, those specific sustainable and green investment projects that are focalized on recovering hotel and hospitality sector with the different private sector projects that are interested, of course, on the recovery. How do we do this? Of course, the basis of this is education. So we are working inside the UNWTO website. You will find a landing page where you can find 5 webinars where you can, if you are either an investor, a developer, or a government, you can get trained on edge certifications that are the certifications that the IFC, International Financial Corporation, uses in order to certify that you are developing green business. So after you take that webinars and you took, of course, the EDGE certification, you can come to us, you can work with the IFC and the UNWTO, and we can analyze, of course, the due diligence of your project. If you're a hotel developer, if you have inside your model a green model of using renewable energies, on involving communities, on developing sustainability, of course, you can achieve new either investment from the multilateral financial corporations or some loans, depending, of course, on the scope of the project. So for the time being, we are working with 7 countries that are where the pilot projects are based. So we are working with South Africa, with Jamaica, with the Southeast Asia, because we're working with Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, India. And with that said, of course, we have to grow and to scale this up, but this is the time where we want to see where we are regarding sustainability, and of course, how we can recover tourism through investments. So, as I already said, just to wrap up, I have spoken about, of course, the priority of having innovation in our state of mind. Second of all, I told a bit about how our vision is to recover tourism the right way, using sustainability and green investments as a key priority. So that's why we are working either with an investment network or the multilateral financial corporations. And last but not least, I cannot forget education, because of course, the more educated we are today, the more engaged with digital education and digital skills are we engaged today, the better to develop or to create added value jobs. So I encourage, just to finalize my pitch today, I want to encourage you to visit our UNWTO Online Academy, where we have a lot of new content focused on tourism management, because of course, the more you are aware and the more we study about tourism, the better, because of course you will be UNWTO ambassadors, education ambassadors, and of course you can help us to scale the way people are educated. And with that said, we can recover tourism again. With those 3 drivers, innovation, education, and of course investments, we can develop a new mandate, a new understanding, and of course a more sustainable sector, and to lead by example in order to recover tourism again. Thanks a ton for being here with me today.
Okay, I think we got disconnected with Natalia. Okay, so just to start the panel discussion, I will try to focus on this this framework to make it super straightforward. So the UNTAC already developed different research on this, and we kind of proposed one validated model that has three steps to enable the investments in the tourism sector. And as many of you know, the UNWTO work with different tiers of countries, and of course, there are countries that are very developed and they have they develop a huge strategy for tourism sector, and they are doing really well in terms of investments. But others are starting to do that. There are a lot of questions on this, and we will cover this later on. But just to summarize this first framework, we want to focus on the strategy that actually Sarah was presenting and introducing. That is important to understand who is in charge of the strategy. What are who are the people, the organization, if it will be a investment promotion agency, if it will be the government. So those are the questions that we want to answer. Of course, not in this seminar, but the idea is to develop this framework together and to develop a strategy together with the help with the UNWTO. So we actually developed these guidelines, so you can download and you can start reading and connecting us to see how you want to do on this. So the main questions before our time is up. I will focus on these two main questions, especially for Bosniak and Inge, please. Last week we covered the themes that are defining the landscape of the tourism sector in terms of investments, and this week we want to focus on these two specific questions based on the drivers that I presented in the first part. Maybe Bosnia, you can help me from your experience from WIPA. What are the concrete practical facilitation indicators, or what are the best practices that you have seen in all these years of experience from WIPA on how can we improve the investments in the tourism sector? And the second question before you start is for Inge, related with sustainability. I know you have a lot to share about it. We have an entire webinar next week on this, but I will like to hear your perspective on your experience, but also how can we intersect the sustainability issue with the innovation and technology issue. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Miguel, and thank you, Tiana, and other colleagues as well. I enjoyed as well the presentation, yours and Sarah's as well. I would like to say first that we definitely value our future cooperation with UNWTO, and I can clearly announce that WIPA is extremely proud and happy that UNWTO will join to the consultative committee of WIPA. So it means that we will bring the tourism sector close to our members, which we have it from all around the world, from around 130 countries. And if we all know that there is a contribution to GDP in a global level from tourism 10.3% and 1 out of 10 jobs, this means that tourism is extremely important in the terms of investment as well. As far as the IPAs are concerned, of course, we all know that there are different types of IPAs, but many are joining tourism into their operations and into their mandates. Of course, what we heard is extreme drop of FDI in a global level, and just today or yesterday, the UNCTAD issued another investment monitor, which proves that predictions of at least 30 to 40% drop in 2020, which will continue in 21. I would say that what we heard as well from presentation of the technology. So practical things, I would try to be very short, is that definitely not only investment promotion agencies, but anyone in life will need to revisit the strategies. We'll need to think about the priority, let's say, actions, being more lean organization. And what we believe is the travel will definitely be important, although of course Sarah presented there are technologies that of course enables investors to be able to see the locations and being prepared for post-COVID era to travel again. But for example, I came across the other day from our other consultative committee member, International Chamber of Commerce, that they sent to all the ministers in the world how to restore the travels in a safe manner. Today, for example, I'm on the airport now, I'm traveling, I'm flying, so I'm coping with COVID somehow, and I believe we should all do this because travel also means tourism. And we all know also from our own survey that we did in WIPA was that especially travel, especially let's say hospitality sector was the most affected from the COVID. And what we hear from investment promotion agencies is that they are checking their priorities in the tourism, and many of them already switched to more sustainable focus on the tourism, more to boutique tourism, trying to, of course, as well, making it a virtual tours. For example, hotels, as we have today representatives here, are sending me, I'm a member of the many groups as well, Radisson, they are sending me that my miles or my points will be protected, which I believe it's a good, I would say, subsidy for anyone to keep the pace high and to trust to let's say, the providers. This is also how I believe there are, of course, current investors. There is a certain stock of investments in each, let's say, host country. And the main, let's say, task during this pandemic of the IPAs, not only in the tourism sector, was, of course, to, let's say, caress the existing investors and the ones who are in the country and will potentially expand further on their operations or invest into infrastructure. We all know that more than 50%, as far as I heard before, goes to construction. So it means to the infrastructure. So definitely there will be a need, of course, to keep this in mind, to try to mitigate the risk of current and existing investors that will attract attention to expansion or even new potential ones. Digital tools means as well that it's not every, for example, IPA or the institution that promotes for the tourism is not ready. We all know that least developed countries are still suffering on this field. It's not only that they don't have tools or they are not able to use the technology. They are, but there are missing bylaws, laws, and all these things which they need to keep the focus on. The infrastructure that I mentioned before, practically, I guess now it's especially time to keep an eye on the infrastructure, on the buildings, on the hotels, on the roads, on all infrastructure, because now we have more time to focus on this to prepare for the post-COVID era. I would say sustainability, but I'm sure our colleague from the hotel sector, Inge, will speak more about sustainability. But we see more and more focus on investment promotion agencies to put the SDGs and let's say especially this focus also into the tourism strategies. Where, for example, I come from the Slovenia, and I used to be the head of investment promotion agency, which was responsible for tourism. The main focus from that time on, and it's continuing, is on green, healthy, and active. So it means for sustainable topics and focusing, I don't know, for example, on kind of things, any kind of, let's say, parts of the tourism sector that might attract attention of the, let's say, future investors. And we heard a lot that investors are paying increasingly a lot of attention to the social and environmental footprint of the project. This comes from FDI intelligence report that was just launched. So I guess this goes all hand in hand. And I believe when we hear from the, let's say, sustainability point of view, from the Inge after me, we will have the whole picture. So I will stop here, but I'm, of course, open to any kind of questions.
Thank you so much. I think there's a lot to be I mean, to unpack, right? Like we just started the conversation, and I think that's the idea of these webinars. And of course, since we have so many countries in our radar, I think the best thing is to distribute it by regions. So Inge, I have a lot of questions related with sustainability actually here in the Q&A. And one of them is related with the incentive, like what can we do to incentivize this transition from what exists right now to what it could be. And also, I would love to share a little bit of what you were sharing with me the other day about what you are doing. So.
Okay, thank you, and very interesting. I mean, I love being part of this distinguished panel because a lot of the insights are typically insights that I, as sustainability and safety and security professional, do not hear every day. So I really appreciate the opportunity and also the initiative of UNWTO to start this investment group and investment training and strategy. So I would say with RHG and relating Radisson Hotel Group, we are part of the second largest hotel group in the world. So I'm more from the classical side of the tourism and travel value chain. We are a hotel operator, but we are not the asset owner. Now, we know and we have confirmed as Radisson Hotel Group that our sustainability challenges are huge. We have inscribed in our 5-year strategy from 2020 to 2025 that we will reduce in these 5 years our carbon footprint by 30% and our water footprint also by 30%. The other big challenge we are working on is to phase out single-use plastics, and of course the whole waste and plastic issue is exacerbated in the COVID crisis. Now, in the model that I was talking about before, we are the operator, we are the brand, so we will set our sustainability strategy and requirements, but specifically related to the buildings where we know we need to go to net zero carbon. We know there are 30% inefficiencies still in the buildings. However, in the operating model that we have, the CapEx needs to come from the asset owner, who in a lot of cases, and especially in emerging markets, are not institutional investors. Now, unfortunately, until in this current situation of tourism and travel, and I believe that that is a situation which will persist till about 2023 when tourism and travel recovers fully, there is no space for these asset owners to invest in the capex that is required to make their buildings sustainable. So I do believe that our recovery needs to be sustainable, it needs to be inclusive. If we relate to the UN Secretary General's policy document on tourism recovery, we know that women are disproportionately affected by the job loss in tourism and travel. That is happening now. So the recovery needs to be sustainable from an environmental and a social point of view. It will need innovation. Bozjan, you said it. Everybody needs to revise their strategies, and I think also our sustainability strategies need to be looking at innovation, digitization, tools that can help us realize more efficiency in sustainability. But what my recommendation would be, and what I, from a sustainability perspective, would like to see, if it may be a call to everyone on this webinar, is that in the next 2 to 3 years, all our investments on sustainability will be focused on conversions of buildings and upgrades. It will not be greenfield projects. So it is typically those kind of investments that we need to promote and that we need help with in realizing. So it's really the retrofits. There's going to be a lot of reshuffling on the hotel market, on the buildings that are available to be hotels. So we will really need to focus on those retrofits. The other thing which I think is essential is that we will have a destination-centered approach. Because in essence, if you look at it, we are the operator, as I said, we set the strategy, we set the framework, but the person or the entities doing the investment, the asset owners, are per definition very often local. And they are very often of SME size. So they are not, or they are often not huge institutional groups. There's a little bit of a shift coming, even in emerging markets, but we have to assume that there's still a lot of asset owners, which are essentially family businesses, SMEs. And therefore, I think that we should have a destination-centered approach in terms of promotion of sustainable investments, which is geared to SMEs. And what that means is that we will need things like a one-stop shop for technological and financial assistance. We need partners who are willing to invest with us and with the owners in those specific locations, in these sustainable building renovations, in these sustainable solutions. It's very much, in my view, a destination-driven approach. And what I was thinking, and that's something I learned today, is the GIS data portals. Well, what if these data portals would include sustainability information, just to make those investors already aware of what the sustainability requirements and context is if they are bringing their direct investments to those locations, because that gets the conversation started early on, and then it could evolve once the investment is done into this one-stop shop for technological and financial assistance. And then the last thing that I would add, and I have an excellent example that we did in the past years to prove this, is that the investment promotion really needs to focus, in my view, on sustainability requirements. And by that I mean either subsidies, we need the subsidies to make the innovation in sustainability happen. We need the subsidies or the preferential loans or the investment promotion mechanisms to make hotels and other tourism partners invest in innovation or co-invest in innovation or help to dare to try out innovation. And if we're talking, for example, about preferential loan schemes, we need to have loan schemes that really make a difference, for example, or subsidies that really matter. And I give you an example. 3 years ago in Frankfurt, we, together with the renewable energy provider E.ON, we installed a hydrogen fuel cell combined heat and power installation in this very big 500-room hotel. And it's the first time that that was done. So hydrogen being clean energy, but this is really new technology. So the point is to have emission-free heat and electricity for the hotel generated on-site, which is really a technology of the future. We could only make the business case work by the subsidies that existed at that time from the German government towards this green energy production and towards the investment. So that was a big leap for us in terms of innovation, and we're very willing to do similar projects in mature and emerging markets, but we need a framework that helps us and helps our partners to get to that level of doing these innovative investments. Because otherwise, these technologies that are relatively expensive because they are so new will not be accessible for tourism and travel. So I think there's a lot that can be done. I would certainly be very interested in working with certain destinations to see what we could do potentially from Radisson Hotel Group ourselves, but also maybe collaboratively with other hotel groups to see how in certain destinations we can prove that we can really make that transition to retrofitting our buildings in a sustainable way and to integrating digital startups for sustainability efficiency in our operating model. So happy to continue the conversation after this very interesting webinar.
Thank you so much, Inge. It was really, really good, especially coming back to our conversation that we had last week. So it's really insightful, actually, the examples they give us. I know our time is up. We usually end up really, really on time, but this is so interesting, and I want to take advantage of your insights. Just before you leave, I just want to point out what you just saying about the frameworks. We, as Natalia was mentioning in the video, we just started a pilot with the IFC from the World Bank Group, and we are working with 7 countries related with actually retrofitting what you were talking about. And one of the things that we identified, because we kind of did a survey as a diagnostics for investment readiness kind of tool. And it's really interesting because, as you said, there's just one shop place that you can actually go. There is resources to be invested in emerging markets. Sometimes the governance and the strategies of those countries are so scattered, and it's very hard for us, or the institutional investors, to actually tackle the needs for investments, right? So that is one of the things that we are going to develop in this next year, hopefully. And what we are doing is to divide them by tiers, and that's why we are partnering with the state members to actually create these frameworks for transitions in terms of retrofitting, and also these incentives that you were mentioning before. And on the other hand, as you also raised, Boxniak, the idea of the tools and how we can team up. That's why Sarah is here. There is a lot of tools out there that are so powerful, and I think it's the best. I mean, it's best for us to partner with the people that are already doing this well, and create and I think the COVID-19 is a really good opportunity to accelerate this transition. We already have a lot of issues, and I think with the COVID, these issues are like more notable now. But also I feel like there is a lot of willingness and a sense of urgency for the leaders in the sector to tackle those needs. I'm so sorry to finish the webinar here. I know that you all have different busy agendas, and you are in the airport about to take a flight. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll be continuing, of course, the conversation next week and on other webinars. For our participants, thank you so much for connecting and hanging in. And we are going to have the 11th, the next seminar on green investments per se. And of course, you can download the guideline, and we will send it to your emails. Thank you so much again, and have a nice the rest of the day. Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.